Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Crossing Borders pilot episode edition of the Always Next Year podcast. I'm your host of this segment today, Shane Mead, and I'm joined with our Canadian friend, Connor Donald from Canada. Connor, this is your first segment, man. How are you?
Good. Happy to be along and finally have a chance to join you guys on the segments. You guys can follow me at Connor10 on Twitter, Instagram, and those are my two main sites that I'm active on. Excited to be around finally to get the chance. I've written a few articles for the Eagles and for the Flyers, and those are my two main teams for sure. But hopefully I'll get in on some Phillies and some Sixers segments in the future as well. But it's good to be around.
Good, man. Well, like I said, we're excited to have you. I'm excited for this segment because it's something a little bit different, something a little new. So for those of you who listen to our show and follow us fairly religiously, one, thank you. Most of our segments are pretty specific, just reactions to the current week. This segment is going to be a little bit more debate style. Sometimes I may be debating Connor, sometimes we may be debating Twitter. But what we're going to do is we're going to pick one hot take a week for each of the core four in Philadelphia, and then we're going to give our takes to it. And it's going to be a surprise to each one of us, too. So we pick the takes, we send them to each other, and we don't discuss it all week. So everything you get on this segment is going to be our raw, actual take and emotion. Hopefully, we disagree on some in this first episode, and we get in some decent arguments and debates here. If not, we're going to promote LJ onto this show for the occasional twist, because that guy will argue anything and everything. But without delaying this any further, we got four takes for you guys this week. We're going to jump into them. The cool thing about these takes is the fact that sometimes they're going to come from blue check mark Twitter users such as Skip Bayless or Stephen A. Other times they're going to come from local media guys on WIP radio or, anyone within any of the organizations. Other times it's just going to come from you guys. This week we're actually pretty excited. Almost everything that we have is coming from you guys, the followers, and what's going on in Philadelphia sports Twitter and in that verse. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to start with the Eagles, specifically because me and Elle have yet to get in studio and talk about the Eagles this week. Our schedules haven't worked out, so I think we're both itching for that a little bit. So Connor, we're going to give the Eagles take real quick. Right now, one of the most common debates on Eagles Twitter, now that the running back issue has been resolved, has been at the cornerback position. We have a ton of depth. Who should the outside cornerbacks be? So we already know some of the guys who played themselves into conversation last year due to injuries. We know some of the guys who were obviously injured last year come towards the end of the year, who kind of solidified their spot as the starting corners to enter last season. And then we know some hopefuls there, in the Sidney Jones. What's your take on who should be manning the outside corner and who should probably be moved to safety?
Okay, well, I guess I'll start off there by saying you got to put Ronald Darby out there. We paid the guy. He's tried to prove himself countless times, and when healthy, definitely has proven himself. He grades out with PFF as an above average cornerback, and he has definitely flashed some really great potential. So if we're going to put the money into him for 1 year to prove himself, obviously you got to have Ronald Darby out there. And then from there, that's when the debate starts. I'm for Rasul Douglas. Rasul Douglas graded out actually above Ronald Darby. I think Rasul Douglas, definitely, he was one of the ones in the debate to move to safety. I personally don't believe moving him to safety. I like what he was doing at cornerback for us. But at the same time, I'm kind of stuck on Maddox too. But I think you got to go Darby and Douglas on the outside and then have Crayvon LeBlanc on the inside, because I definitely loved – I don't think any Eagles fan will debate that they loved what they saw from Crayvon LeBlanc during the playoffs and what he brought to that team. It was incredible. As far as Sidney Jones goes, I love the guy. I love that we took the chance on him, and he's just an unproven talent. I want to see what he brings to the table, but I don't want to see him as a starter yet. But if he's kept filling in for Darby or filling in for Douglas, all for it. Jalen Mills, I don't want to see him at corner. I don't want to see him at safety. I think he's better
Oh my
just
God.
I think he's better just backing up. In my honest opinion. You know what? I'll admit I love Jalen Mills. It's just he hasn't shown any flashes of being a starter at either position. I think at the end of the day, if he's filling in, if he's covering off a few snaps when someone has to get off the field for a bit, fine. But as far as a starter, I don't think I see Jalen Mills there, nor Sidney Jones. But I got to go Darby, Douglas, and Lynn LeBlanc on the inside.
Well, I'm so glad we started with an Eagles take right now because we are going to debate a little bit. First of all, I agree. I'm cool with LeBlanc on the inside. I think what he proved was awesome. I also understand that there was limited proof there. So there are still some interesting names that I could sit there and see. Darby, I also agree. I'm actually a pretty big Ronald Darby fan. And you don't pay the guy the money if you're not going to throw him out there. 100% agree. You want Razul freaking Douglas on the outside? That slow ass Razul? You're out of your damn mind. First of all, and I'm not a huge Jalen Mills fan, but I understood what I got out of him. I don't understand what I get out of Russell at the cornerback position. He's just too slow. His hands are great. He's a ball hawk. I'm not arguing that. He's a safety at best. He's like a third safety. He's not a he is no business being on the outside. I do like Maddox, like I mentioned, but I'm the other way with Sidney Jones here. This is the year for him. Last year was the first year, fully removed from the Achilles, and you saw the effects of that. That guy, every game, every time he felt literally anything on his leg, he was down and he was getting helped off the field. Came back most of the time in a play or two later, but there was that lack of confidence. And when you come back from an injury, like I've torn my ACL, I don't know, 4 or 5 times now, there's a lack of confidence when you first get back out on the football field. Last year wasn't going to be that year for him. We saw that same type of thing with Carson Wentz. He wasn't the same quarterback as he was, you know, the year prior, when he did tear his ACL, because there's that extra split second of thought you got to put into your game. Once you complete a season back from that injury, it's that much easier to come up and play your game. And I do think Sidney Jones, you don't take the risk on a kid like that in the second round when we took him, and arguably first round talent, top 10, top 15 talent. You don't take that risk if you're not putting him on the outside. His ass better be on the outside. 3 spots ahead of Russell Douglas. I think you're crazy.
I get it. I get it. I see your take there because you know what, I debated Douglas and putting him at safety because he has the features of a good third safety, someone who I honestly think could develop behind McLeod and Jenkins, depending on where we go with the draft this year. But I mean, for Sidney Jones, I don't know if putting him on the outside is where you're gonna build his confidence. Maybe he's better suited on the inside, taking
Yeah,
reps.
but we saw him on the inside, and he was bad.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you put him on the outside. Look at Jalen Mills. What if he becomes a Jalen Mills? You never know. I mean, it's tough because Jones is just such an unproven talent, and you know what you think you've seen the potential of what you could get from him with how he played at Washington. I mean, if he builds his confidence up during the preseason and during training camp, and he really steps up, I'd love to see him there. But I mean, I agree with the Douglas take. It's so tough with him because I mean, I know we can't just talk grades. He graded out extremely well, fairly well, above average. He's there, but I think that's maybe less for what he brings to the cornerback position, which I agree on. But Maddox, I think he showed a lot of flashes too. So it's a tough debate between Maddox and Jones there, but definitely not Mills, not Mills.
See, the biggest thing for me is if they end up going back to Mills on the outside, which if he's not traded, I'd actually be a little surprised. I actually think he's a decent candidate to be traded. But having both safeties, I mean, Jenkins, obviously, he didn't miss a snap last year. He was insane. But McLeod, having him come back and having a proven safety behind you and behind him on that side of the field, that does make a big difference to his game because he is such a physical and aggressive cornerback. Like he's a good tackler. He makes decent breaks on balls that are 2, 3 steps most. Like he has no recovery speed. He's too slow. Um, but he bites because it's a strength because he's a big playmaker. Having a proven safety over top of him makes Mills. I wouldn't be angry if he's on the outside again next year. He was arguably one of our best corners. So, but again, way, way, way above Rizul Douglas as an outside corner. That's a take right there, my friend. Um, that one's not going to be me. Philly Twitter, by the way, or for Philly's Eagles Twitter. There we go. Um, most people are in agreement with the Derby. Most people are in agreement with LeBlanc, and then most people do actually think Maddox is the guy that should be on the outside, and that they should dangle Sidney Jones, which is kind of surprising to me, honestly. The quick twitch to give up on Jones. It's a tough injury to come back from, and Philly's always been a reactionary fan base. Um, but I do respect what Maddox was able to bring. He played extremely well, especially late in the season last year. When getting his consistent opportunity. Um, but yeah, so Philly sports Twitter is a little bit different than each one of us. So I'm really glad that our very first take was something we could sit there and talk about.
Agree.
Still think
Agree.
you're crazy, but that's fine. Um, we're going to jump into so this is a take from one of our actually this guy's been one of our followers, this guy Ken, pretty much since the beginning. So Ken, if you happen to listen to this segment, we appreciate we appreciate the consistent support. Damn, can you tell I've done like 6 segments today? I am running words like crazy. So this is a Flyers take, and I appreciate this. I'm not going to read the actual take to you, but I'll give you the gist of it. It was basically stating that their last playoff series win came in 2012. This team can't skate, shoot, pass, anything. They're just basically a garbage hockey organization, and that if their goal was winning championships, they're failing miserably, and that the franchise is rapidly approaching one of the worst in hockey. So we're going to start with your take on it. Philadelphia Flyers, obviously a bad stretch of time here. What's your take on it? One of the worst franchises in all of hockey?
Well, definitely not. I would not go that far. As much as I respect Ken and I love that he follows us and gives us all this love, I completely disagree with this take as far as saying rapidly approaching one of the worst. I think the Flyers, I understand that we're getting frustrated with this be patient, be patient. I mean, if anybody follows the prospects that are coming up, those are that's some crazy skill coming up for the Flyers. Obviously, we got to lock in another top 4 veteran D man. We got to get rid. They've done a great job of getting rid of some really dead contracts. If we could get rid of McDonald, I would love it.
Oh, they're going to buy him out.
I'm from the Maritimes. He played out here for our Q teams, and man, he's got to go. He's just got to go. But and to say we're making zero progress, that's tough to say because Ron Hextall and Dave Haxtall. I would agree with the statement if they were still here today, because to think that those two were making progress, that is definitely that point could be made. But rapidly approaching one of the worst, there are some teams I find who are making the playoffs this year who I think we are better than, who I think we have a better, like look at the Montreal Canadiens. I don't think they're better than us. Despite where they are, I don't think they are. If Carter Hart got called up earlier, I think we'd be a playoff team this year. Would we be going to the Stanley Cup? By no means, definitely not, I don't think. But I think we'd be in a lot better position. To say we're making zero progress, look down at the people that Ron Hextall drafted. He has built a killer system with some killer skill coming up. Look at just the likes of Morgan Frost. Crazy the numbers he put up this year. And to say we're rapidly approaching one of the worst, well, I would highly disagree with that because, I mean, look at teams like I said, the Canadiens, the Edmonton Oilers. There are so many. We could probably go on and name 10 or 12 teams who are struggling worse than us. We have the system to succeed in the future. And I know that people hate to hear patience, but the Flyers need a little bit more patience because we just turned over our coaching and turned over our manager. So that's my take there.
So I certainly don't think that we are one of the worst franchises in hockey. But what I would say is that we are rapidly sputtering out of identity. There are so many different identities within the Flyers organization right now, and they are very different than what they were 3 months ago with Hextall and Hackstall. This offseason, I want to answer Ken's question again, or tackle this take again after this offseason, because just like you mentioned, this is such a critical time. If they don't go ahead and shore up that defensive end and get a true top four veteran defenseman who can eat up a bunch of minutes, and be really, really technically sound out there, like it's something we certainly lack. And having one guy like that out there is going to make such a difference for all these young defensemen, which, by the way, all drafted within this system because it was part of the original plan. Doesn't mean those plans don't need to be made, addendums to, like they do. They obviously need that change and that growth. But having one defenseman out there that is going to be a true veteran to come in there and kind of hold things down, huge difference. Carter Hart, if he comes up earlier, I'm kind of the mindset saying he still needed that time with the Phantoms just to feel out feel out hockey here. I do think that was pretty important, and I do think that had he started the year with us, I think there's a pretty damn good shot that he would have been overplayed. And I just don't know that a 20-year-old's body was going to hold up for 50 games. But this is such a critical and crucial offseason that if they screw up, if they don't get Q, and if they go out and get like a McClellan or something, like you fucked up. Like that's a bad thing. You can't go in here and have Gordon as your coach again. And he's done an admirable job, but that isn't the identity that you need going forward. You need a championship coach going forward. You need Coach Q. That's number one. Number two, 100% agree with you, finding your vet D-man. We've done well with moving contracts. I think that there's going to be a shakeup. I don't want to move more Voracek. I'm very pro Jake Voracek, but I do understand that he may be the odd man out. And think about that. We've wasted so many years of Claude Giroux. We've wasted so many years now of what Jake Voracek was and is. We wasted prime years of Wayne Simmons because we were never willing to make the difficult decisions. Jake may be the difficult decision. Ghost may be a difficult decision to move on from. Robert Haig, for those people who are insane enough to like Robert Haig, moving him may be part of the difficult decision. The identity process and figuring out who the Philadelphia Flyers are going to be beyond this offseason, that's when I want to tackle this take. Right now, I'd say they're just a lack of identity. That doesn't mean that they're rapidly approaching an embarrassment of a franchise, while that argument can certainly be made for certain things over the last several years. I think overall, just as you mentioned, the amount of prospects that they have, and they very well may all end up being middle six guys. Like, you don't know. Morgan Frost, we all assume, is going to be a top line, major point producer, but we don't know. You never do. But the point is, our depth in those prospects is insane, just like you said. So for all of Flyers Twitter who are going insane over the state of this year, I mean, we were recording the In Cap We Trust segment a little while ago, and Stephanie turns to us in the middle of the segment and she goes, I know we're talking baseball, but Flyers have let up 3 goals in the first 3 minutes of this game. 2 minutes later, we've let up 5 goals on 4 freaking shots. Insane. 4 goals on 5 shots. Reverse that. But that'd be pretty goddamn special. They're just a team that lacks identity for right now, like a consistent identity. So going forward with the Flyers, it's going to be completely based on this offseason, how successful they can or cannot be.
Agreed. No, I am completely on board with what you said there. I think we just don't have an identity, and that comes with most teams who make coaching and managerial changes mid-season.
Exactly.
There's just, you lose your identity there. The identity was of a way too patient team with Hextall and Hackstall, and now we're just in limbo, and We're going to see what Fletcher can do this offseason and what type of identity he really wants to build for the Flyers. Obviously, everyone says, look at that cap space. We got like 37 or 38 million. And everyone's like, look at that. But they got to remember there's some big contracts coming up too. We got Konechny to re-sign,
Yep.
Provorov to re-sign, Santa. There's some people that we got to re-sign. So they got to remember that you can't go out and get the top 4 free agents and expect to keep the team intact. So I think we also have to take it with a grain of salt as well.
Seeing that's a really good point. So that's something me and Steve talk about a lot. It's something we talked about on when I guest spotted on another show, the John Carlson thing. Um, so what's what's your stance on going ahead and getting or John Carlson? Jesus Christ, this is a long goddamn night. What is your stance on getting Carlson? And possibly ending up paying him what could end up being $8-9 million a year for the next 6 years when you have a very like skilled guy in Ghost for a significantly more favorable contract. When you do look at Sanheim just added another $1.5 to $2 million a year on his deal with how he's played in the second half. Provorov needs to make more than Ghost. Konechny, you're going to have to pay these guys. What's your take on that?
Listen, I agree. And I mean, for those of you who read my trade deadline article, I love Jake Voracek, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm pro trading him. I think that's a contract that's not going to age well. I love the guy. He's got skill. He's a great playmaker, but I don't think that contract's going to age well. When you think about it, you got I think it's 5 more years on that contract. You got to be careful. That's 5 years at like $7.5 million per year.
I think he's making $8.
Could go to paying other people. So like going out, I don't think we should go get a Carlson. You know what? I'm going to be honest. I think a Trouba might be a little excessive. Some of those guys might just demand too much money. I mean, let's look at, we got Phil Myers that we brought up and is flashing some great skill. Like you said, Sanheim, Provorov. There's some amazing skill on that D-line. Yes, we need a veteran D-man, but maybe it's all about the patience game like we saw with the MLB free agency. Maybe it's a patience game and someone might fall in our lap for the Flyers. I know Flyers fans hate the patience, but maybe that's what we got to do. Wait and have someone fall into our lap like that. I was a guy, I pitched in my trade deadline article, I think it was Wayne Simmons for Dougie Hamilton. I'm pro moving bad contracts, and I'm pro going for a guy who's not going to sit there and put up a ton of points for you, but just be a leader and be a good top 4 D-man. Because that top 4 D-man, no guarantees are going to be your 1 or 2 D-man. So you gotta remember that you might put $9 million in there, guy who ends up getting flexed into the 3 or 4 spot. Do we really want to pay a guy $8 million to play the 4th D-man spot, fringing on potentially going to the 3rd line? Probably not.
All depending completely upon what their skill sets are. If they're a penalty killer, I'm okay with throwing some extra money their way, especially in Philadelphia with the lack of success there. If you're moving Ghost, which I am so against, but if you are moving Ghost, I'm okay if you pay someone who maybe doesn't flash the most sound defensive abilities if they're going to give you 65 points and be a catalyst on that power play. So there's different ways of thinking about it, but 100% agreement. You know, while we do have, and we can thank Ron Hextall for this, for getting us out of the cap hell, we do have a ton of money, but we do have a lot of contracts that are due within the next 2 years. So there's a lot at play here, which does make the guys like Voracek, looking at him sitting there saying, all right, here's a movable asset that maybe we can get someone to take the cap hit on. I don't know the likelihood of it, that we wouldn't have to eat a good bit of that, but is what it is. I feel like I could talk Flyers, especially, look, you're Canadian. I'm pretty sure we started talking about hockey, the very first thing that we first started talking about.
More than likely,
but,
yeah.
I gotta assume. So we could probably end up talking Flyers takes all day. So we're gonna move into the Sixers take, which is my favorite take, actually. I completely forgot about this one until we mentioned it. And we're talking about it right before segment. But it was from Seamus Clancy. So he tweets, if Brett Brown was an Eagles coach, who never beat the Cowboys in 3 years and routinely was losing in embarrassing fashion, uh, including a playoff matchup. Jesus, look at it, I'm trying to fucking read on my phone right now. Which his team was the favorite, he would be fired. So again, taking the Brett Brown takes are so tired. And I'm saying this right after I came in some fairly harsh criticism of him for the first time on our show. So please take it away on this one for your Brett Brown take, because I'm pretty sure we're going to be in differences here.
Yeah, I think we're very much going to be. I mean, I know you guys are always all over Twitter after you do a Sixers podcast talking about how you're pro Brett Brown. I like Brett Brown. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great coach. He came from the Greg Popovich line. You can't say that's a bad coach. So, but in this instance, although I believe this tweet is a little extreme, Brett Brown's got to prove something with the skill he's got, with the talent he's got. Doug Peterson, he went out there, he proved so much with the skill, with the people that he had and the skill sets that he had around him. Brett Brown, I understand he's gone through some tough years. I mean, my God, he went through a year winning 10 games. The man still has hair. That's crazy. But I think personally, he's got to prove something this year. This has to be the year. We got to get to the playoffs. If we get to the NBA finals or the conference finals, yeah, I see Brett Brown staying around. I think he's worth keeping one more year and see what he does with all the talent that we've given him. But I say if we're a first round elimination, I think you really got to reconsider Brett Brown. As far as this take goes and beating the Celtics, that's tough. Every time I've watched the Sixers lose to the Celtics, it rips my heart just a little bit more. And it's a part of me feels, yes, I think Brett Brown is getting outcoached in those matchups. Because, man, Brad Stevens, although the Celtics have had some issues this year, that man's smart. That guy's a genius coach. And I think Brett Brown just genuinely, when it comes to that final minute, he gets outcoached by a Brad Stevens of the world. And I guess we're getting away from the core point of the take, but I believe if Brett Brown, when you see what Doug Peterson did, Brett Brown's got to take the talent he's got, and he's got to do something in this next 2 years with the talent he's got, or he's got to go.
So I think the thing that gets lost in this is the severity of this tweet only works because Philly's still L will tell you this every segment that he gets a chance to, but Philly is still a football town. If Doug Peterson was consistently being outcoached, and losing to the Cowboys and losing in the playoffs when he's favored, you're damn right he'd be fired. There's a different spotlight on NFL coaches than there are on NBA coaches. It's a completely different world. So to sit there and line them up in that way, I think is just so damn unfair. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Brett Brown apologist and I sit here and think, oh my God, the guy's such a good coach. He's an average coach. Let's make no real mistake about this. Any NBA coach outside of guys like Popovich, they're basically babysitters for the guys with the most ridiculous egos in all of sports. Those guys are maniacs with entirely too much freedom, NBA players. Maniacs might be a little harsh, but they're the most colorful, right? It's all about style. It's about, hip hop. It's about image. It's about so many other things beyond basketball. You need a psychologist. I say it every single chance I get when talking about that. And to me, there isn't anyone else that I can currently think of on the coaching market or who could be soon on the coaching market that I would trust to massage the egos of a guy like a West Coast type style Ben Simmons, all laid back and reserved, a big personality in Joe, an FU guy in Jimmy, and then an all-around talent team guy in Tobias who's been moved around constantly, and he's just looking for a damn home that he could sit there and say, this is where I'm going to be for the next 5 to 6 years. And I still want to find my shots, though. How do you massage all that talent and keep them all happy and keep them all just cohesive on the court, in the locker room, in general? To me, that's the X factor that is Brett Brown. He's a guy who can keep these guys coming to work every day, putting in 100% effort and liking each other. I don't know that any other coach makes Jimmy Butler get along with Joel Embiid, get along with Ben Simmons, that makes those guys not just kill each other. That's the big thing to me. Is it frustrating when he loses to Boston? Absolutely. I'm just like you. Every time I watch the Sixers play the Boston Celtics, I get a little bit more, I need to give up now. I need to walk away. I've got to walk the hell away. But then you do look at that. There are maybe 4 minutes a game where a coach matters. Brad Stevens in those 4 minutes right now, he's a better coach than Brett Brown. There's nothing wrong with that. He's just a better coach than Brett Brown. Brett Brown, I think, is in times a better coach than most coaches in the league for what he has. The big thing with Brett Brown for me is the fact that he's gone into each one of these years. He got successful over freaking night. They weren't supposed to be what they were last year already. That was the first year of Ben. It was the first full year of Joe. They got hot riding a 16, 17 game winning streak, riding into the playoffs. They made the right bench acquisitions to a bench that was terrible. And those Marco Bellinelli and Ersan Ilyasova last year got hot and didn't cool the hell down until the playoffs. Everything worked and put this unreal expectation that says, hey, we're ready to contend right now. Then they went and got Jimmy Butler. Then they got Tobias Harris. Then they shored up the entire bench with completely new different pieces. Think about it. When we started the freaking year, Markelle Fultz was the starting guard. This guy has not had a starting rotation and a consistent bench rotation for more than 10 damn games a year. That's pretty damn hard when you're managing that kind of ecosystem that's in the NBA players. So I do not think that the man should be fired, even though 2 segments ago on TJ's One of Us, I did sit there and say that there is a better than not chance that if they do not make it out of the first round, or if they don't compete to a 6th or 7th game in the second round, that Brett Brown probably is going to get fired. I just personally wouldn't do it. I just think that that's the reaction that's going to happen. But damn, these Brett Brown takes, man, they piss me off so much. So much.
I agree. I agree completely. And I understand where people come from. We're talking about Brett Brown and just continuing to give the man a chance. But this team is all about changing. This whole year's been all about change. So if things settle down next year, should the expectation not be there that Brett Brown takes, if everything stays the way it is, maybe some improvements on the bench, should the expectation not be that, all right, the time is now? Just like everyone's thinking now, the time is now with Brett Brown. I think that time is now, and he's gotta figure out a way to just help get it done in whatever form. In those 4 minutes, if he can just do it and get those 4 minutes right every time, that could be the difference between us getting a championship and us not getting a championship.
So I think the biggest thing from that is the fact that it became the time is now, and this is a full-on necessity that they get to at least the Eastern Conference Finals, if not represent the Eastern Conference in the finals. They made that abundantly clear when they made those 2 big moves for Jimmy and for Tobias. They said, hey, go win this now. But in doing so, you've had Joel Embiid has missed time off and on. Well, he is the centerpiece of your team. When your 2 new assets can't play with him consistently, how the hell do you expect them to mesh? Doesn't work. You can't. That kind of chemistry needs to be built and developed organically through playing time. Joe's off the court. That's a damn problem. Jimmy Butler. He's been run into the ground by Tom Thibodeau for 8 years of his career, or however the hell long he's been in the league. That guy's got a lot of minutes under him. He needs maintenance days. He's in and out of the lineup. He is also basically a shell of what he should be right now. He's very much so, in my opinion, playing passively and safe to make sure that he gets the next contract. But, and then Tobias gets here late. It's a lot to massage those players in and get them playing together consistently when I don't know if they're sitting there and they're saying, shit, we got 35 games with these guys, 20 games if you're with Tobias Harris. I think he's only been here for like 26 games. Um, you know, we're going to rest one every night because we can. Well, I think that's the wrong mentality. So the Brett Brown thing again, I'm not going to say that he's been set up to fail. He hasn't. Obviously the first several years of his coaching career, he was certainly set up to fail. That was the whole goal, was to fail. I do think that there's an unrealistic expectation that's been put into there when Joe exceeded the expectations that he did last year, when Ben spurred onto the scene like he did last year, when you draft a Markelle Fultz who you assume is going to be a competent NBA player, and instead he can't get out of a freaking psych ward. Like, these are things that were out of his control that he's now kind of paying the price for, and someone has to. Gotta love alarms going off directly into a microphone, so sorry to everyone listening. Um, but the Brett Brown thing, it's just, again, it's tiring, man. I'm tired of defending the man. Just everyone, just do me a favor, jump on and just say, hey, Brett's the guy. Brett's the guy. Just enjoy 76ers basketball. Not right now. It's a bad week to say this, but for the most part, enjoy 76ers basketball. We only got like 6 minutes left on this because we talked too long about Brett Brown, my favorite topic, and hockey, our favorite topic. But the last one is we saved this one because they're the most relevant team right now in the city, and that is the Phillies take, and we're taking one from Jack Fritz, who we had on in Cap We Trust last week or the week before, last week, for a guest spot appearance. That was pretty fun, getting him on segment. But he tweets out, this shows you how long ago we've been preparing the show. But after the Trout deal, he goes, now we turn our attention to Chris Bryant. So I've given you the reins to start each one of these. I'm going to start this one because I can make this pretty short and sweet. I hate Mike Franco, even though I respect what he's doing in the 8-hole right now, and I do respect the growth that he's made defensively at third base. And I totally understand that Chris Bryant was a very underperforming third baseman, both offensively and defensively last year. But if the Cubs keep sucking, which I have no reason to believe that they will not, I do think that this is just not that great of a team, and they're falling apart with a bunch of money locked up that they're not going to be able to afford. They're going to look to move guys. Who's a good baseball team right now? Who's going to be a good baseball team by the deadline? The Philadelphia freaking Phillies. Who needs to continue to rebuild their farm system? The goddamn Cubs. Just give me Cole Hamels back and, I don't know, throw in a Chris Bryant. Do the right thing. We'll lock up Bryce Harper's Vegas buddy that he played with. End of argument. Also, John Lester I would take instead of Cole Hamels. One or the other. Not super picky. Just send me one of them and then send me Chris Bryant. What is your take on the wonderful tweet from Jack Fritz?
Okay, well, as we're learning this year with the Philadelphia Phillies, that I think this tweet can be classified as a no shit tweet. I will take anybody who's going to continue to make this team good and have us winning the World Series for the next 3 or 4 years, because the rest of the teams can be frustrating as hell to watch. The Sixers, the Flyers, the Eagles, can't say they're frustrating. They're doing great. But the Sixers and the Flyers are frustrating as hell at times to watch. So definitely, I'm going to say this is a no shit tweet. I would take Chris Brown or Chris
Brown.
Bryant.
See, we got to record earlier.
Chris Bryant any day. But I agree with you. Like, the Cubs are struggling. They do have a ton of dollars tied up, and I wouldn't be surprised to see moves being made. And we definitely, like, Cole Hamels going after a left-handed pitcher is something that I think will end up being a need of a proven left-handed pitcher will become a need of the Phillies by mid-season. And if you can get a Chris Bryant tossed in there, and we've clearly shown we're willing to move some of our prospects, well, we move some prospects and we continue to build for a strong run for the coming years. So I honestly don't think Chris Bryant makes free agency either. I think he ends up getting moved, whether it be to the Phillies or whether it be to somebody else. I actually agree with that statement fully and completely, that I think he and some other key names from the Cubs could be moved by the deadline unless they really turn it around, which, even if they turn it around, like you said, there's a lot of money tied up in that team. Eventually, some names are going to have to go.
Yeah, I think for the most part, it's going to be some aging guys in that rotation, and I do think that if you're going to pick a position player to build around there and to keep long term, as frustrating as Javi Baez is, he's the guy. Like one, he fans love him. You still need someone who has some marketability to him. Javi Baez has that. You know, Chris Bryant, I still think will end up having a significantly better career when it's all said and done, but he's not quite as flashy or as fun as that outspoken, insane Javi Baez. The team's still going to need someone to put someone in the seats there, and that's going to be Baez versus Bryant. So I do think that Bryant does or could be made expendable. And I also sit there and think, with the depth of the prospects that we have, I'm not saying we can go ahead and overpay because you should never overpay, but we do have the ability to sit there and say, you know what, screw it. We're so deep right now at the major league level, let alone our prospect level. We can afford to. And I think that we will be the organization that teams at the deadline are going to be picking up the phone and making calls for all types of things, whether it be for left-handed starting pitching, whether it be for, you know, for a third baseman if Franco falls off, which right now, look, I'm hoping the guy doesn't. As much as I dislike him, I'm loving him in the 8 hole right now. It's like the perfect spot for him. But again, you sit there and you throw Chris Bryant's name at me, and sorry, man, I suddenly become that meme walking down with a girlfriend and looking at the girl who just passed. That's Chris Bryant. Um, but but yeah, so I feel like I should have saved the Phillies tweet and put that either second or third and put a more argued tweet at the back end. But in this particular case, since it was the pilot episode and we're feeling out some things here, it worked out kind of nicely because we're coming up on the end of time here. So to sit there and just, I think you said it perfectly, a no shit tweet. Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. After the extension season that's gone on so far, you know, seeing guys like Arenado go and then seeing Trout go, you know, you start taking a look at who in this next bit of free agent class might be left. Uh, it might be the guy. And again, I do love me some Chris Bryant. I do think that when he's on, he's a damn good baseball player, and he's versatile. You know, he doesn't have to stick at third base, even though that is his best position. But that's pretty much going to wrap up things for Crossing Borders with ANYP. I think we're going to use the hashtag just hashtag Crossing Borders ANYP. We haven't totally married down to this yet, but then again, most of our listeners have yet to figure out what a hashtag is, apparently, which is coming from someone who is just social media stupid. So there's also the strong possibility I'm misusing them. But if you're listening to the pilot episode of this, for now, use the hashtag Crossing Borders ANYP. You can also follow Connor on Twitter. Connor, go ahead. Why don't you remind them again? I know we started it with it, but where can we find you on Twitter?
At Connor10, and yeah, definitely use that hashtag. Send us some hot takes when you're sitting there and the Sixers frustrate the hell out of you or the Flyers frustrate the hell out of you. No take is better than the one in that very moment for us to talk about.
That's 100% correct. So, and just so you know, even if you're not tweeting at us, we're still looking and we're still finding some of the best ones that are out there. So again, just like he said, if you're watching some of the games and you're frustrated, if you're driving, text to tweet or talk to tweet, whatever the hell it is. If you're in an argument you don't want to be in, if you're 3 pumps in, you're about to finish and you got shit else to do afterwards, send a tweet out, use the hashtag. We don't care when it's coming, where it's coming from. We're interested in all your tweets and we're going to put them on this show and we're going to debate them. And that's the whole fun of this particular segment. So again, I'm super excited to finally get you on, Connor. It was a good time getting you on here for this. Like I said, eventually when we have some real scorchers, I think we're going to put you up with LJ, and maybe I'll just mediate the situation because I do think you guys would be pretty good. But thanks again for tuning in, everyone, here for the Always Next Year podcast. This has been Crossing Borders with ANYP with Connor Donald, and I'm your host, Shane Mead. You can also find me on Twitter at Shane_Mead. And then, as always, the podcast at ANY Podcast. And if you're listening to this or any of our segments, no matter where you are listening to it, do us a favor, rate and review us. The next person to actually rate and review, type something in with actual substance, gets an autographed picture of Rob's face. He's a handsome man, something you're going to want. I got to assume it's going to be on everyone's fridge at some point in the next 10 years. That's going to be it here for the Always Next Year podcast studios. For Shane and Connor, we're going to sign out.